based on the current events that took place in a correctional facility in New York, and where correctional officers crossed the line with the inmate, right, taking it to that level. We're gonna speak about the culture within the CDCR and those institutions who are known and that I had the privilege to be in. So before we continue with this video, man, don't forget to grab yourself a bag of chips and enjoy the show. What to do, my raza? Your boys coming through once again with a new video. And today we're going to talk about the culture within institutions in where it is okay for a correctional officer to act in a violent way towards an inmate without justifying their actions, right? I had the experience of being at High Desert State Prison and Tehachapi. For those who know about institutions in California, you know that those two places, yes, they're violent within the inmates, right? But also they have a reputation of correctional officers assaulting inmates and taking to the level to the point of unaliving them. That's known throughout the system. And yeah, I was one of the lucky ones to land in those prisons, man. Maybe that's why I am the way I am, because when I was in those institutions, you learn not to complain about everything. Why? Because they will take to that level, man. The whole thing about those institutions is to limit the interaction between you and the CO, because you never know when it could go south. And I've seen it many times. So we're gonna talk about High Desert, and then we're gonna go talk about Tehachapi. So High Desert, how it was. One thing I can tell you about High Desert is that my experience right there, it was like no other. In the sense that once you arrive to that institution, they'll take you to a little room and basically give you the business. Telling you, hey man, this is how we run this. You're not going to come over here to our institution and try to run things. So, I mean, right there, you're like, oh, whatever, man. I'm just trying to do my time. That's it, right? But they give you a warning. No other institution that I've been at has done that. Only in High Desert. First incident that I witnessed on that same night that I arrived right there is that there was somebody. We went to a building, right? It was me and a couple homeboys. One of them landed on a single cell status, right? He was in a single cell. His toilet didn't work. His water didn't work. Nothing worked in that cell. So he trying to get at the cop. Hey man, what's going on? There's no water. Because for those who know, before somebody goes into the to a cell, the cop's supposed to open the cell, make sure everything's good, and just leave the lights on, right? But apparently this cell doesn't have a water. So the homies getting at the floor officers. All of a sudden, there comes the four COs and pull them out, right? So like, okay, well, they're going to put them in the shower. They're going to see what's up with the cell, whatever. Nah, they pull him out in his boxers, right? Handcuffs. After those four individuals had the homie, here comes another crew of COs and take him outside. Right there and then, you're like, oh man, you already know what's going to happen. So, for the homie story, was basically this. They took him to outside to the yard during the snow, super cold out there. And mind me, the homie's like 5'2", very short. He said he looked around and he saw nothing but corn-fed white boys. This is High Desert. Most of them, they're white, and they're from the hills, homie. They're from the hills. And basically, it was basically what you want to do. Like, they were pushing up on him. They were pushing him, and the homie, like, he couldn't do nothing. So they just give him a little ass whooping, throw him on the snow in his boxers, and give him an ass whooping. A quick one, just nothing. He got lucky. They didn't take it to that level. You know what I mean? But basically made a statement that you better not complain. You better go with the program. If not, this was gonna happen, right? The guy went inside the cell. He didn't complain about that no more. Eventually, later on, the following day, somebody went over there and fixed the toilet. But this was the environment in high desert, and where there are situations in where, for whatever reason, the inmate would ask something to the cop, and the cop wouldn't like to deal with this, and all he would do is just spray him with no justification, right? And on the report, they'll write that the inmate was trying to assault the correctional officer. Here goes to the hole. Once you land on the hole with those charges, trust me, it's a whole different story over there. High desert was very high desert was a very toxic environment, and honestly, man, the time that I was right there before 2013, before that lawsuit they did on them, it was so bad. I wouldn't wish this upon nobody, because inmates were being unalived by officers left and right. If there was an incident, they wouldn't hesitate to use the Mini 14. It was like target practice. And if somebody has access to how many unalives by a Mini 14 took place in high desert, man, it's a lot of them. In my time that I was right there, which was those 6 years, I can recall that it was at least 4 or 5. That's a lot. That's a lot. The environment of high desert was more of a racist. They're white, and only the white inmates have good jobs. The rest of you guys figure it out. And that's how it was, you know, and you learn to accept that. And sometimes certain groups will take it to that level, right? That's why the Southsiders end up taking off from the SEALs right there in 2010, I believe. But this is how high desert was, and we're gonna bring stories on high desert because there's a lot of things that took place that deserve to be put out there. As for Tehachapi, man, the environment was not a racist one, but it was more like that these guys were gangster. They were gang members, literally, man. They feel they had all that whole tattoos and stuff like that, and they acted and take it to that level. One thing that we have to remember, that when I was right there, it was the shoe, and then eventually came to the yards, right? You see all these CEOs bumping Tupac or bumping whatever gangster music, and they had this attitude. So right here, if somebody was complaining about something like high desert, they'll take you out of your cell and they'll give you an ass whooping. They will not take you outside the building like high desert used to do it. They'll take you to the day room so everybody can hear what was going on, right? And they'll do it with your handcuffs behind your back. There was an incident in where an inmate came from the bus, and for whatever reason, whatever happened in the bus, man, or in R&R, they decided to put him on the concrete yard, you know, away from everything. And they gave him a beating with those batons. They split his head open. They bruised him up to the point of basically unaliving him. And this happened when I was right down the hall. It happened when I was right there. I know the officers who did it. You know, those were my floor officers. Because of this, a lot of people got fired. And this was not the only incident that took place right here and why they did what they did. There was multiple incidents in where people were getting beat up, in where people were becoming alive, and where CEOs were faking the reports. And again, there was nothing done to this. There's nothing done to this. Why? Because they can manipulate the reports. Once they do that, they justify their actions. If you were to ask me which place was the worst, right? Honestly, I can say the high desert was the worst. And the reason why is because in Tehachapi, they only did it to certain individuals, right? If you know how to do time, you're good. But in high desert, it was more racial. It was more racial. If you were not white, you had it coming. And that's how it was. That's how it was, straight up. So High Desert was the worst. Then Tehachapi, but both of these places were dangerous, and both of these places unalive individuals. They did unalive individuals, and whether they justified their actions on paperwork or not, who knows? But it seemed like the CEOs behind those walls were untouchable, and this created an environment, a culture within the same institution, between the same yards, and where it made it okay. Why? Because the CEOs saw how their partners were doing stuff and nothing would happen. So guess what? They felt comfortable doing the same thing. And that's how everything gets created. That's how an environment gets created, right? And it was pretty bad, man. But with this being said, we are out. Wish nothing but the best to you guys. To next video. Gracias.